evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Tonight, we'll be showcasing an overview of how to find out what you need to register for in your first year and the process for registering once registration opens. Before we get started, let's introduce you to who will be joining this evening on the webinar. You're probably wondering who I am. I'm talking to you this whole time here. My name is Erin, and I'm a recruitment advisor with undergraduate recruitment for Lakehead University. I am also an alumna of Lakehead, and I'm also born and raised in Thunder Bay. So if there's anyone with Thunder Bay questions in the background, please feel free to ask. And I will pass it on to my colleague to introduce himself.
Hey everybody, my name is Aaron. I'm a recruitment officer here at Lakehead University. I work out of the Lakehead Aurelia campus, but I do recruit for both Thunder Bay and Aurelia, as well as our Lakehead Georgian partnership programs. And I've been at Lakehead since about 2012. I'm from kind of the London area, so for those of you that are coming from maybe southwestern Ontario, I'm happy to hopefully see you here in September and make sure you guys ask lots of questions here this evening. I see lots of familiar names, and I know I've met some of you already the last couple of months, so welcome.
Hi everyone, so my name is Jessie Clark and I'm a Student Central professional. So I work out of our Student Central area, and we help students kind of right from the time they're thinking of applying straight through to graduation. So we help a lot with admissions advising and academic advising, as well as student awards and financial aid. I'm also a Lakehead graduate, so I graduated from the Aurelia campus in our interdisciplinary studies program, and I kind of live in the area, kind of at the outskirts of Aurelia there. So happy to join tonight and hopefully share some good information to get you prepared for course registration when it opens. Yeah, so looking forward to it.
Thank you, Jessie and Aaron. So before we get started, now that you know a little bit about us, we want to learn a little bit more about you and who you are joining us today. So I do have a few polls that I am going to launch. So the first one is just letting us know where you're tuning in from this evening. So whether it's the Simcoe County Thunder Bay area around our two campuses, the GTA, Toronto area, other parts of Canada, other parts of Ontario, or maybe you're an international student joining us as well. Perfect. You are all voting very, very quickly. I really enjoy seeing that. We also like to kind of keep you on your toes, that you're still in the background. So most of you have voted, so I am going to end this one poll. So a lot of you are from the Simcoe County area, Thunder Bay area, the GTA, and other parts of Ontario. I'm also very happy to see other people from Canada and some of our international students joining us as well. So I do have a second poll. We're just kind of wondering which of the following best describes you. So whether that's you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, an international student living in Canada or with a study permit, or an international student living outside of Canada. Great. Right, so I'm going to end the poll. So most of you Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. Right. I have 3 more polls. We just kind of, again, just want to get an understanding of who you are joining us, and we can kind of cater some of our answers towards who you are. Right, so the next poll that I do have is what you're currently attending or most recently graduated from. So maybe you're in high school, maybe you were in high school last year and you took a gap year, a leap year, or the last sort of school that you did attend was high school. It's been a few years. Whether you last attended college, maybe you're already at a university or started university and you're looking to come back. So tons of different options, whether it's other, maybe you were to trades or something like that and you're looking to study at university. I'm going to end the polling there. So most of you, it does look like you're in high school, which is really great. So you're our 101 applicants, you're finishing your grade 12 school year, you have a month left to go, you're so close to finishing. So our fourth poll here is, who are you attending the webinar with this evening? So whether that's a parent or grandparent, a spouse or partner, a friend, a pet, or just me, myself, and I. So a lot of you have a parent next to you, or grandparent or guardian. We understand parents always, they have a ton of questions, especially if you're moving to one of our campuses. Parents really want to know that you're safe on campus and things like that. A lot of you are also me, myself, and I'm going to end the polling there. So one last poll. I promise this is the last one. The fifth poll here is, where are you currently at in the application process? So maybe you're still exploring, you're not sure which program to apply to, you have applied already, you applied and received an offer of admission, or you've applied and confirmed your offer. All right. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll. So most of you have applied and confirmed your offer, and I want to say congratulations on an offer and welcome to Lakehead. And so this is sort of the next step in your process after you've applied and confirmed your offer, and you're kind of wondering, you know, what are my next steps? When are classes going to open up and things like that? So we appreciate that you are here to learn more about that process. So before we jump into course registration, I do want to talk about our in-person learning plan for September 2021. We are planning to return for primarily in-person learning starting in September 2021, including the many experiential learning opportunities such as fieldwork, placements, and practicums that are integral to the Lakehead experience. As we prepare for the start of the 2021/2022 academic year, we are confident that we will be able to safely return to our campuses with our signature small class size experiences delivered on campus, the return of our hands-on experiential learning opportunities, as well as hybrid course offerings and a mix of online and Zoom courses. We're also taking every step possible as part of our commitment to your exceptional university experience, while always adhering to public health guidelines and adapting as necessary to help ensure your safety while on campus. Right, and now we're going to move into the course registration part of our webinar.
Perfect, thanks, Erin. So yeah, let's get started. I'm sure you have lots of questions, as this slide indicates. So kind of your next step, as Erin mentioned there, a lot of you, it sounds like you've applied and confirmed. So that's awesome that you've been given an offer of admission and you've kind of done those next steps to accept that offer and pay that confirmation deposit. So really kind of the next thing is course registration and knowing what to take for courses. So a lot of times students don't know exactly, can they make their own schedule, or there's certain requirements for their program. How many courses do I take each semester? All these kinds of questions. How do I actually do the registration process? It's a lot different too, even if you're a transfer student coming from another university or a college, the process can be quite different. So that's why we like to hold webinars like this, as well as our Fastpass webinars that we'll talk about later, to kind of just help guide you through this initial process and make sure that you understand what you're looking for when you do that course registration process. So we'll take a look at the next slide and just kind of start with some basic lingo, because I know we kind of throw around acronyms and we say different things, and sometimes it can be a little overwhelming and daunting, especially if you're coming right from high school. This is a totally different system and registration, that's for sure. So kind of the basic level there, a course. So when we say a course, sometimes you'll hear you have to take an elective course, you have to take a type A course, or we might refer to that. And what we mean by course is a full course equivalent. And we often short form that to FCE. So in your program requirements that we'll look at later, you'll see FCE, that term a lot, which really just stands for full course equivalent. So in order to get one full course equivalent, students can either take 2 half credits, so they could take 2 half courses that are worth a 0.5 FCE to make up 1 FCE. And those half credits are usually a 1 semester course. So usually it's a fall course, or usually it's a winter course, and it's worth that 0.5, that half credit. Or to get a full course equivalent, that 1 FCE, you may also take a year-long course. So it may be a course that spans right from September to April, so the whole academic year, and it's going to be worth typically 1 FCE, or 1 full course equivalent. So it's important to know that kind of if you have a requirement in your program requirements that says, you know, let's say 1 FCE of elective, you can take 2 half courses to make up that requirement, or 1 full course equivalent. So you kind of have some options there to make up that course. Same with the word credit. So we kind of just use this as a measurement unit for a course. So it indicates its weight within a program. So again, as I kind of mentioned there, most of our programs and most of our courses are a half credit and a full credit system. So that 0.5 FC and that 1 FC. And that's how they would appear on your academic record. So that's how they appear on your transcript. So as I mentioned, usually a fall or a winter course is a half credit, and then 1 FC of full credit is usually all year, so fall and winters. There's obviously a few exceptions to that with some programs that have courses with slightly different weights. I will point out if we have any Lakehead Georgian students joining us, for instance, some of the Georgian courses as part of that program are 0.33 FCE, so 0.33 full course equivalent. So you will see a couple of variations, but for most programs, typically, you'll see the 0.5 and the 1. Also in terms of electives, so most programs will have some form of elective in there. So elective means a course that a student selects by choice. So depending on your program, there may be different parameters around that elective. So some programs may say the elective has to be at a certain year level, or it may have to be taken from a certain discipline or a certain faculty. There may be a list of courses, so some program requirements in the academic calendar will have a list of elective courses, so you'll have to choose the elective from that list. So you just want to make sure when you're doing that registration that you're looking at what those parameters are for your specific program. So we'll pop on to the next slide there. So a little bit more just on kind of some definitions and terms. So part-time, we get asked this a lot, kind of what's the difference between part-time and full-time as a Lakehead student. So part-time is typically if you're registered in 3.5 full course equivalents or less during the fall winter terms. So kind of looking at that standard September to April academic year. So 3.5 FCs and less would be considered part-time with Lakehead's purposes. And then full-time status, that would be 4.0 FCs or more typically during the fall winter terms. So a lot of programs, not all, I won't ever say all because there's always those exceptions and things, but most programs, they require 5 FCE, so 5 full course equivalents during the academic year. So a good number. Some have a few more. There's some programs that may have 5.5 or even 6 FCs. Some things like our engineering programs and some of those programs will have a higher course load requirement. But many programs are 5 FCEs for undergraduate programs. So in that case, if you're taking that 4 FCs or more, you're going to be considered full-time in terms of all the things that go with that. So like, health and dental plan and fees and things like that that are based on full-time, part-time status. And again, the 3.5 FCs or less being the part-time status. Another term that you'll see when you go into the registration process and looking at the timetable and course descriptions and things like that, you'll see the word prerequisite come up a lot. So prerequisite is a course or a set of courses that have to be successfully completed. Sometimes there's a grade requirement on those, but this course has to be completed before continuing on to another course. So I know a lot of you are joining us from high school, so a lot of your courses won't, in that first year have a prerequisite, obviously, because you're starting into first year. But if you are a transfer student joining us, maybe you're starting into year 2 or taking up your courses, then sometimes there will be a prerequisite, a course that you have to take at the first year level, for instance, to get into a second year level course or something like that. Similarly, a co-requisite. So this isn't a course that you have to do before, but it's actually a course that you have to successfully complete in conjunction with another designated course. So it may be prior to, but typically it's at the same time. So kind of co-requisite courses have to be taken together. And it would identify this in the description of the course. So you don't kind of have to guess at that. It's going to tell you. Along the same lines, similarly to co-requisite, I often on this slide talk about labs too. So that seems to be a common hiccup at registration time is if there's a lab attached to the course, a student does have to register for the lab and the course at the same time. And if they don't, they'll get an error message. So something to keep in mind too, especially if you're in science programs, or there could be other programs that have a tutorial or a lab associated with the course. Make sure you're registering for those at the same time. So we'll pop on to the next slide there. So understanding course codes. So we'll get into this a little more when we have some screenshots from the actual Build My Pre-Registration link, but just to give you kind of an overview of how to read the course codes when you're looking at the timetable once it gets published. So those first 4 letters, that's the department code. So each department at Lakehead has an individualized 4-character code. So this one is PSYC, so that stands for psychology. Same thing, BIOL would be biology. So each different department has their own code, and that's what the first 4 letters stand for. The next 4 numbers there, so in this case it's 1100, so this is the course number. So the first digit in this actually indicates the year level. So because this starts with a 1, this is considered a first year level psychology course. So looking at that first number. So you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4 for like, standard undergraduate programs. If you're in a master's or a graduate program, you'll see higher numbers there. There could be 5s. Some of the placement courses, placeholder courses might be 9. So if you're in graduate programs, you'll see higher numbers, but for most undergraduate students, you'll see 1 through 4, as well as sometimes there's 0. So there are some programs that have a course that starts with a 0. So it might be, 0210 or something. So if it starts with a 0, most programs actually consider that kind of a any year level course. There's a few different programs that might consider it a first year. So they kind of count 0 and first year level courses together in terms of, beginning first year level courses. But most other programs look at that 0 level as kind of any year level. So you won't see too many of those. Typically you'll see the 1 through 4. So that's the first number there. And then you'll notice to the 3rd digit, so in this case it's 0. This indicates if it's a half credit or full credit. So you will always see on the timetable and in the academic calendar, we'll always list the weight. So if you don't remember this, that's okay. But it's kind of a nice, quick, easy way when you're looking at a course to know whether it's a half credit or a full credit. It's a little trick that we have. So that 3rd digit, if it's even, it's a full year course. And if it's odd, that's a half credit course. So 0 in this case, even. So this would be considered a full year course. You can also tell that too by the next 2 letters there. So that's the course section, the YA. So the first letter there indicates the term in which the course is being offered. So that is a Y, so it's a year-long course. So that's also telling us that that's a year-long September to April course. You'll see the letters there. So F is fall, W would be a winter course, Y the year-long, and then we have spring, summer semesters too. So S is spring and A stands for the summer. So that's what the Y part is there. The next letter, A, so that would be, it identifies that there's multiple sections of the same course. So sometimes if we have a course that's really popular, so let's take Psych 1100 for instance, that's a first year intro to psychology course. So lots of different students will take it, whether they're in a psychology major or they'll take it for an elective for another program. So sometimes if you have popular, especially first year level courses, we'll have multiple sections of the same course. So we might have Psych 1100 YA, might have Psych 1100 YB. If it's really popular, we may have YC. So sometimes that letter there will change. It's just multiple sections of the same course. Sometimes it'll be noted in the timetable. Sometimes the course might be restricted to a certain major program. And you'd see that noted on the timetable. Like, if you're in this certain program, take section A or whatever. Otherwise, if there's no notes, then students can register. Sometimes it'll be at different times or different days. So in that case, if there's no, kind of specifications on it, you can register for whatever one would fit best with your schedule and your other courses. Also too, if you're at the Aurelia campus, you'll see on the end, there's actually a 3rd digit. So this is a Thunder Bay course code because there's only 2 digits. If you're on the Aurelia campus, you'll see an O at the end of this. So our Psych 1100 YAO would be the Aurelia campus. So that last digit would be Aurelia. We also have our Lakehead Georgian programs. So their courses end with a B on the end. So that stands for Barrie campus. So you might see if this was a course, for instance, that ran as part of that program, it would say YAB. So the B, Barrie, O, Aurelia, and then if it's a Thunder Bay course, there's just the 2 letters. So something to keep in mind too, if you see that extra letter, there's a reason for it there. So we'll head on to the next slide. All right, so this is kind of a screenshot, and hopefully sounds like most people have accepted and paid that confirmation deposit. So you've probably at some point hopefully been into my info, whether that's to track your application status or paying that confirmation deposit or what have you. So this is a screenshot of the student tab. Right now, most of you should just have the applicant tab, unless you're a spring, summer, you're admitted for spring, summer, or you have a bridging program as part of your fall admission. Then you will have a student tab. Otherwise, most people will probably just have an applicant tab. So if you kind of look at that, it's a little bit small on the screen, but if you look over on the left-hand side, it says home, applicant, student. The screenshot, we have employee and alumni there too, but most of you will probably just have home and applicant for now. You've probably been in the applicant tab quite a bit. So once you do get a student tab, and this usually doesn't happen actually till kind of right before registration. I think there was a first question earlier about when registration would open. So there's not a specific date for that, but it will be kind of early July. So keep looking at your email, and my info will post it as well. So once that date is confirmed, which should be shortly, we'll post it, but it will be early July. So I can kind of give you that time frame. And the timetable will be late June. So they're going to happen fairly close together. So looking late June for the timetable, and then kind of early July for registration. So right before registration opens, all of our new fall students who are admitted will be flipped status over from applicant to students. Then you're going to gain the student tab that we have here. And once you're in there, you'll be able to see in the middle there, where the arrow's pointing, there's a section on course registration, and there's some great tools in that section specifically. So we did put kind of a blow up a screenshot over there of what that course registration section looks like. So lots of different things in there. Today, we're going to kind of focus on kind of the first and the last links there. So the first one is the Build My PreRegistration. So this is actually right now the portal that we use for the actual registration process. So planning your timetable, searching the timetable can be done through here. So searching for courses, kind of mocking them up on a sample timetable, and then actually proceeding and registering the courses can all be done through that Build My PreRegistration. So you can plan and then actually register all in kind of one step, which is nice. And then we're also going to take a peek too at the bottom where there's a direct link. In my info, there's also a direct link from our main webpage to the academic calendar that we've kind of alluded to a few times already. So if we go to the next slide. So this is the course calendar, which is the link for the academic calendar. So sometimes we say academic calendar, you might hear course calendar. They kind of refer to it both ways. So right now, the new calendar actually came out today. So this afternoon, I was excited to see that we had our 2021-2022 academic calendar posted today. So that's perfect because now you can kind of go in actually before the timetable comes out. So you kind of have the month of June to have a look in here, find your program requirements, and we'll kind of show you where to get to those a little bit here. And then have a look into at your faculty regulations. There are courses in here, but it's not the actual timetable yet. So I know sometimes students will click on that courses link that you'll see on the left-hand side. And that's actually a collection of all the different courses that we might offer at Lakehead or Aurelia or Georgian, Lakehead Georgian. So that's actually a collection of all the courses that have kind of been actively offered in the last 5 years. So those may be all the different courses we could offer, and then each year the timetable is built. So not all those courses will be offered each year. Some are like mandatory courses and things like that. So they will be offered year to year, but other courses might be special topics, and we kind of rotate some of those. So that's a good place to kind of see all the courses and a full-on description of the courses and everything like that. But it's not the actual timetables, and not all those courses will necessarily be offered. I've had some students in the past plan their full timetable around the courses there, and then unfortunately it wasn't actually the courses being offered. So I try to put that little caveat in there that you'll want to look at the actual timetable once it's posted to see what's being offered. So there's a lot of great things in here. I would encourage you to kind of poke around. This is something we'll go over at Fastpass webinars too, that we're going to have when registration does open. But there's lots of great things in here, important dates. So you're looking at when new classes start, when's the last day to add a course or to change around a course. Lots of great things in there. Same with your program requirements that we're going to look at in a few minutes. There's a direct link for our partnership programs, also regulations too. So each faculty has their own regulations, and sometimes there's program regulations. And when you actually register, you're agreeing that you've read those and understand those. So with the new calendar out, I encourage you to take a peek in there, look at your specific faculty, and have a read through there as well to look at that. We'll just pop onto the next slide there. So this is a sample screenshot of the program requirements. So on that last screen, on the last slide there, we saw that there was a programs and faculties link. So once you go there, you actually click on there and you choose your faculty. So whether that's faculty of social science and humanities or health and behavioral sciences, faculty of engineering, faculty of business, depends what program your faculty is under. And then you can search by undergraduate programs and then kind of narrow down by departments, whether it's English major, psychology, whatever it may be. So we picked this screenshot just as an example. And again, I apologize, I know it's kind of small to fit it all on one page here. But this is an honors Bachelor of Arts English major. And we chose this one just because it's represented at both campuses to give you an idea. So this is really what you're looking at to give you a guide of what you're going to register over the course of your program. So this is a 4-year program. So tell students exactly what they're going to take first year, second year, third year, and fourth year. Obviously, there's some choices in there, so it doesn't necessarily say course by course what you need to take. But this is basically when it comes time to graduation, after your 4 years, or if you're in a 3-year program, 3 years, or whatever the case may be, we're going to look at the academic calendar, check off that you've met all the requirements, and that's how students are deemed eligible to graduate. So this is really kind of your guide as you move through your Lakehead career in terms of making sure that you have everything checked off and don't get any surprises come graduation time that you've missed a course or something like that. So I usually tell students to bookmark this page. When you start in 2021, 2022, so when you start in fall 2021, that's the calendar you're going to follow for your studies. You're going to continue following the 2021, 2022 calendar. So that's why if you bookmark it each year, you can kind of get back to the same calendar, which is nice. Unless you were to change programs, then sometimes you go into a new calendar for the new program. But if you stay in the same program, you're going to keep referring to those same program requirements. So that's why if you kind of just mark it and have it handy, each year you can kind of check off what you've registered for and what's still outstanding. So just as an example in this program, the program requirements will tell you a little bit at the top. It'll kind of give you an idea of what major average might be required for your program. There'll be some special notes in some programs in terms of, if there's special requirements that you have to take within, let's say, your electives or within the courses in your program. There's certain, so this one's English for an example, and it says that like within those requirements under first year, second year, third year, fourth year, it talks about how there's different requirements from 3 different areas. So then there's links to those areas where you're wondering what is an area 1 English course or an area 2 English course. So important to read kind of those notes because it might be things that you have to keep in mind when you're picking those courses. And then essentially you look at first year. So this one, just to look at it, English 1115. So that's a very specific course that students in this program would have to take. So it's giving you a specific course code there and course number. The next requirement is 1 additional half course in English at the first year level. So there's a little more latitude in that requirement. Program requirements always kind of start from the most specific down to the most, or the least specific, I should say. So the next requirement, you could take any half course in English, but the caveat there is that it has to be at the first year level. So we may have 3 or 4 or 5 different other English courses, and you can pick for those as long as it's a first year English. The next requirement there, looking at first year 1 FC from type A courses, and there's a link. So we have type A, B, C, D, E, which you'll see in a lot of the programs, which are just basically different categories. So like humanities, social sciences, things like that. So in this case, they have to take 1 FC from type A. And if you click that link, it'll show you a list of courses that would be considered type A. Same with 2 FCs from type B. So it can be different courses. So it's kind of like electives, but they have to be type B, basically courses. So you can choose any type B course from within there, but it does have to be that type. So there's kind of that requirement on there. And then the last requirement is the most open one, which is 1 FC elective. So there's no kind of parameters on that one. So that's where you can kind of choose whatever course that you're interested in, that you think you'll do well in. A lot of times we see students actually, they take electives and realize they really love those. And then, sometimes they'll switch programs or what have you if they enjoy those electives. So a lot of programs will have some electives built in, which some students find great because they can choose a lot of other courses and explore different areas. Sometimes it's hard to make that decision to pick other courses. So it can be difficult sometimes when you have a lot of electives, but there's a lot of choice, which is kind of nice too, to explore other areas. So again, kind of looking at it, goes from very specific requirements down to more open requirements. This one too, I just want to make a note that usually there's notes at the beginning of the program requirements. So that's kind of up there, you see how there's specific areas. And then oftentimes you want to scroll all the way down to the page because there could be notes at the bottom too. That are specific to your program, or there might be a recommended list of electives at the bottom of your page or something like that. So we'll pop on to the next page there. And I think too, I know there's lots of questions coming in, but I think we'll go through most of these slides and some of those questions might get answered as we go. And then we'll look at what hasn't been answered, and we can definitely go through those questions. So unless there's any that you think are super pertinent.
I was going to say, Jess, I'll answer some of the specific ones in the Q&A, and everybody's had some good questions thus far, so thanks for submitting those. But I will keep some of the more maybe general questions that we have in the Q&A, Jess, and then you can answer them live in the Q&A whenever you want to, or at the end. Okay,
perfect. I saw there's quite a few there, so
yeah, no worries.
They might get answered as we go, so we'll go through a few more slides, and then we can definitely have a look and see what hasn't been answered. So this next slide here, this is actually going into, I don't know if you remember the slide that had the My Info, where you get that student tab. And this is going into the PreRegistration Builder. So that first link that we saw in that course registration section, it was called Build My PreRegistration. So when you click into that link, once you get an active student tab, it's going to bring you in to this page. First, you choose your campus before you get to this screenshot. So there's Thunder Bay campus, Aurelia campus, and then our Barrie campus, or Lakehead Georgian. So you choose the campus that's pertinent to you. Once you do that, then you get to a search for courses spot. And we have some great, I know this is kind of a quick overview and a high level overview, but we do have some great step-by-step video tutorials of this whole process. So if you don't remember any of these screenshots and wonder what to do, we have some great resources online. And then we also have those Fastpass sessions that I'll talk about a bit later that's going to go through these same kind of things in a little more depth. So just keeping that in mind. I know it's a lot to take in on course registration, so we do have resources to help too. So once you go into that build my pre-registration, then you'll get to choose your campus, and you're going to get to a search feature that you see here. So this is actually a way to search the timetable. We do post the timetables on our website, which you can search there as well, but this has more searchability. So usually when you're looking at the general timetable just on the Lakehead website, usually you can search by subject and year level, I think instructor, and that's about it. Here it's nice because you can narrow down your search a little bit better. So you can search by subject, so you can search English or criminology, whatever the subject may be. You can put in a year level or leave it blank. You can search by type. This is handy too, especially when it gets confusing sometimes with those different types that we saw in the example. So type A or type B courses. So this way you can search by type. It goes A, B, C, D, E. And the most common types. So you can actually search, I want to find a first year type A course, and it'll help you find courses that would be considered type A. You can also search by delivery method if you want, and then kind of narrows it down to instructor, time of day. I will probably say that when you're first starting on this screen, less is more. So oftentimes, usually probably 8 or 10 times when I get students that have, they're trying to find a course, let's say it's that first year sociology, so sociology 1100, let's say, and they just can't find it. It's not in the timetable. And usually it's because they've narrowed down the criteria so much that it's not showing up. So if they think maybe it's a fall course, but it's actually a year-long course, then if they pick, like term or something like that, it's not going to show. So less is often more. So if you really, subject and year level, I would say are the most important. So if you know that you're looking for a first year English, I would probably leave everything else blank and literally just put in English in first year. And that's going to show you all first year level English courses, whether they're in fall, winter. If there was a year-long one for some reason, they would all show up if you're just kind of keeping that criteria to a minimum. So I'd start that way. I'd start really just with subject and potentially year level. If then you pick some courses, now you do need a very specific, let's say type B course, then you might want to add the type in there to search as well. So you might want to not put any subject, but do a year 1 type B course, and that's going to help you find. So less is usually more. When you start getting down to picking days and picking the time of day, then you're going to narrow your selection a lot more, especially if the course falls outside those parameters. So start kind of broad, and then if you need to narrow, I would do that after. And we'll point out too, I forgot to mention the top there. Once you choose the campus, then you actually have to choose the specific timetable you're looking at. So we don't have the new fall winter one up there yet, but when that comes out end of June is when the timetable should be published. You'll see 2021 fall winter. So there'll be an undergraduate students timetable. And then for graduate students, there'll be a separate timetable that you can click on. And then that's when you're going to get to this screen. Our screenshots right now are for spring summer because that's the only timetable that's open at the moment. So for this example, we chose 21 spring summer for undergraduate students and then got to this screen here. All right, so if we want to pop to the next screen there. So this is a view of what it looks like. So if I had put in that last screen just English and year 1, this, and then hit search, I would come up with all the different first year English courses. So our spring summer course offerings are a lot less than fall winter. So we have fewer courses in spring summer. So if you're looking at this fall winter, the page will be much longer and you'll see a lot more options. But right now you'll see that there's essentially 5 options there. The first one you'll actually see is the same course. So you see English 1015 ADE and English 1015 SDE. So same title, same course code like we talked about, but it's the term that's different. So one is A for summer and one is S for spring, but it's actually the same course, but same course code. So there's 4 different English courses represented there, and then one has a spring and a summer option. And you'll see that sometimes too. When you're trying to pick your course, a lot of courses, there might be a fall and the winter option. Sometimes if it's If it's like a part 1 and part 2, so like if you're thinking of, chemistry part 1, chemistry part 2, then you might only see chemistry part 1 in the fall and then the part 2 in the winter. So not all courses will be offered both semesters, but some common ones you might see offered in fall and winter, and then you can kind of pick based on your schedule and your other courses what one might work best for you. I will point out too, I know that wasn't an example in the course code, but this one has DE on the end of it, which is like distance education. So the D is distance. These are all, as you can see, web-based is the method there. So that's why they have a DE as their section, because they're distance education. So how you read this, basically you look at the course first. So you'll see the course code and you'll see the credit weight. So all these courses have a 0.5. So they're a 0.5 FCE. So you'll, right when you're searching the timetable, you're going to see that credit rate right on the time syllable, so 0.5. Then you'll see a description. So if there's an instructor assigned, and sometimes there won't be initially, so you might see that says TVA, but you'll see the title. And for most courses, it should work to link to the course description when you click on that title. So Intro to Academic Writing, that first course there, if I click on that blue title, then it should pop up a description of that course. So you can kind of get a little read through of what the course is about. If there was a prerequisite for something, then it should be listed there as well. And that information is pulled right from the academic calendar that we talked about before. So the academic calendar has, all that information for all the courses, the descriptions and, the weight and the prerequisite information, things like that. And then this pulls information from that course calendar to give you kind of a snippet of it within the timetable. There's a few that it might not link to, but you can always find that description in the academic calendar if that's the case. The method there is how it's going to be delivered. So there's different methods that will be listed. So it might say LEC, so it might say kind of short form for lecture, and then would have a date and time assigned to the class if it was an in-person lecture. If it's web-based, you'll see that it says web-based and there is no room and time because it's online. This past year, we've adapted as well with online options. So we've had Zoom, so you might see it says Zoom under method. And if you hover over that, you'll get a little description. So if you hover over the Zoom, it would tell you that that's more of a synchronous delivery in terms of, usually when there's Zoom, there is actually dates and times. So you're kind of like how we're on Zoom right now, you actually log in for dates and times for your classes and we'll have a Zoom class. So usually if the method's Zoom, you will see kind of dates and times assigned to that class, whereas web-based is asynchronous. So that's more at your own pace. There might be, certain times where the instructor has people log in, for presentations or something, but it's typically more self-paced and independent without specific days and times assigned to it. So the next column, like I said, if there is a room, if it's in person, you'll see a room listed there, as well as there'll be a time and date. And then the next column is the start and end. So these are obviously spring summer courses. So that's why you're seeing like that first one runs July 2nd to August 13th. So if it's a fall course, you'll see a September to December date, your long September to April. So you'll see the specific course start and end dates. And then also if there's a type assigned to the course, you'll see that there. So those English courses are all type A courses. And then you'll notice that one can also be a type E. So I like to note on this slide too, that sometimes courses can be multiple types, and that can be confusing sometimes, but it's also helpful if you're looking for a type B course. As long as it's type B, it could also be a type A or type E, but as long as it covers the type that you need, then you could take that course for that requirement. So for instance, that fourth one down, English 1116, that could be used as a type A course. It could also be used as a type E course if a student needed a type E course in their program. So some courses will have multiple types. Then student could use it for the type that they require in their program. So we'll pop on to the next slide there. So this is an example. If you chose some courses, so let's say you searched through and you picked a few different courses and you save them. So when you're looking through that last slide, there's little check boxes you'll notice beside the courses. So you check them if you want to save them for later. And when you do hit save for later, it starts populating this timetable. So this is a spring summer timetable you'll see at the top. For fall winter, you'll see there might be a fall timetable as well as a winter one, because you're actually going to register for your whole year at the same time. So when you're registering come early July, you're going to pick your courses for the fall and winter. So you're going to be building kind of your whole year timetable. So in this example, we just picked a few different courses to show you how they might show up. So the ones in purple at the top there, those are online courses that don't have, they're web-based, so they don't have an assigned time. So they show up at the top. with no specific date or time. So that's why they just kind of say NA beside the time, and then they show up in purple at the top. So they're web-based. And then if there is a date and time, so probably that English 4010 in the middle is likely a Zoom course that runs Monday, Thursdays from 1 to 4. So it kind of shows up in the timetable during those allotted times. Then further on the timetable, we've just cut off the screenshot a little bit, but you'll see there's a French 0500 course that runs from 5 to 7:30. So it runs Monday through Thursday from 5 to 7:30. And it's shown down there, but then in red. So when you get a conflict, that's when the red's going to show up. So if you do pick a course that's being run either in person or through Zoom, so it has kind of associated dates and times, if you're picking courses that are at the same time, they're going to show up on there in red and show you that there's a conflict. So you can't really see it, but that biology course at the bottom there, it might conflict over the whole time, might just conflict over the part of the time. So it looks like it probably runs 5:30 to 7. So obviously if courses are at the same time, you won't want to take those courses. You can only do one course at a time. So in that case, you'd have to pick something different. So usually all the departments do their own course planning. So that's what they're doing right now, is doing their course timetabling. So they have an idea of what the required courses are. So typically mandatory courses shouldn't conflict. There's the odd time where something might conflict, and we have to look at the department and they'll make a correction to that. So the odd time you might find a glitch or something, and then we work to solve that with the department. But generally, they know what their courses are required, so they're not going to plan mandatory courses that need to be taken in first year for the same program at the same time. So sometimes it's going to be maybe the elective that you pick, unfortunately, might conflict, and you'll see it in red, and then you might have to kind of go back to the drawing board and pick a new elective. So yeah, that's kind of all this is showing. So it's kind of helping you build, and that's what you can look at when you're kind of pre-planning. So doing that pre-registration builder. And this is before you actually get to the registration screen, which we're going to show on the next slide here. So once you kind of plan all that, you put all the courses, you're happy with how it looks like, then you get to the registration screen. So you click, there's a big button that says proceed to course registration on the last screen. And then you get to screen here. So if you had, let's say, 10 different courses, you'd see 10 different courses listed here. We just have one under the example here. So this is the actual registration screen. So once a student gets here, they can kind of review their choices again. So it's going to tell you the section and the name. This is web-based, so there's no dates and times. That's why it says to be announced, because it's web-based. But if there was dates and times, it would tells you when it runs, the faculty. And then you'll see towards the right-hand side there, at this point, this is when you can see capacity of the course too, which kind of gets important if you're changing courses in the summer or if you're registering a bit later. There could be some courses that fill up, obviously. So this is where you would see that information. So in this example, this is a summer 2020 course, just on this example. So you'll see available / capacity / waitlist. So this course right now, at the time that this screenshot was taken, it had 4 available seats. There's 25 seats total. So that was the capacity of the class was 25. And there was nobody on the wait list yet. So that's what those numbers mean. So it's kind of a good spot. At this point, you'll be able to see whether the course is full or if there's a wait list or what have you. So there's 2 kind of different actions. So 2 different arrows you'll see on that screen, that drop-down menu. So if you look at the top there, it says action for all preferred sections or choose below. So that first drop-down menu, if let's say you had 10 different courses, you planned out everything, you have 10 courses listed here. If you want them to all try to register in all of them, then you could choose that action up top. So that would be the action for everything that's in your preferred sections list, which is what this is. This is what you put on your timetable. These are your preferred sections. So if you chose that drop-down menu, register at the top, it would try registering for everything in this list. Usually what we recommend is that you individually do it on the action column beside each course, because sometimes students will put one course in there, then they'll change their minds. So they might have courses on this list that they don't actually want to register for anymore, or they already tried and it was full, but they haven't taken it off their list. So instead of doing for all preferred sections, you can also just individually, course by course, do the drop-down menu beside it. And if that was shown, it would say register. You can also remove it from the list. If it was a waitlisted course, there's an option to waitlist. So those can be done through the action column that you see kind of on the far left-hand side. At this point too, I'll just mention as well, So we talked a little bit before that most programs, most undergraduate programs are 5 full course equivalents. So not all, but most have 5 full course equivalents as part of that, requirement year by year. So usually you recommend that you build a balanced course schedule. So if there are 5 full course equivalents, that could be, depending on the requirements, it could be 5 full year courses. It could be 10 half credit courses, right? Because 10.5 courses equals to 5. Most cases for most students, it's kind of a combination of year-long and half credit courses. And as long as, again, as those add to 5, those 2.5s can make a 1, right? So you might have 3 year-long courses for 3 FCs, and then you might have 4 half credits for your other 2 FCs to equal 5. So it can be different combinations as long as you're following your program requirements. But we do kind of recommend that you ideally build a balanced course schedule. So if it is 5 FCs for your program, ideally you're going to have 5 courses in the fall and 5 courses in the winter. So whether that's 5 half credits in the fall and 5 half credits in the winter, or some year-long courses in there, usually we try to encourage students to make sure they're building that balanced schedules and having 5 courses per semester. There's a few programs that the required courses may have students register slightly off balance. They might have to be in 4 and 6, but for the most part, students can work their electives and things that they do have those 5 courses, because that's kind of a standard course load per each semester. So it's ideal, rather than having 4 and 6, you're going to have a really heavy semester if you set yourself up that way. So we do try to encourage you to build a balanced schedule based on your course requirements wherever possible. So we'll just pop to the next screen there. So this is almost the end for me. I know we're going to get into some questions. Before I get into this, I just want to also mention, so this is kind of a what should I do now? So kind of next steps. But I did just want to also mention, I guess we have the Fastpass slide coming up actually. So maybe I'll stop there for now. I thought that came first. So before we get onto that Fastpass slide, the what should I do now part of this. So kind of the first part there, it sounds like a lot of you have already done. So kind of reviewing, understanding your offer of admission. So there's specific dates that you have to pay those confirmation deposit by, specific dates they have to meet your admission conditions. So just make sure you're kind of understanding that offer of admission letter, make sure you're adhering to those dates, and finalizing that process. So if you haven't paid your confirmation deposit yet, if you still have supporting documents to submit, like official transcripts, getting those in. There will be my info announcements through Lakehead email as well as through my info. So I know a lot of questions about when registration is going to open, when's Timetable going to be posted. When those important things happen, we will notify students through email as well as my info. So when you go into that my info homepage, there's always an announcement section right when you log in. So before you even choose the applicant tab or the student tab, there's an announcement page, and that's generally announcements that apply kind of across the board to multiple different types of students, as well as staff and faculty. So a good place to take a peek there. Also, I know they'll touch on a little bit later on our recruitment officers, but taking a virtual tour if you haven't already. So some great virtual tours for both campuses set up, as well as for Lakehead Georgian students to take a tour of Barrie campus as well. So have a look at where you might be going if you haven't already. Again, once the timetable gets posted, you're going to be able to plan that schedule. So that build my pre-registration link, we looked at it in the student tab, which is where you're going to need to go to it to actually do the registration. But you will see actually that same link, that build my pre-registration link, it's actually in the applicant tab as well. So in that kind of gap between when the timetable gets posted and before you become an active student and you're starting to become eligible to register, if there's a week's gap or whatever there, you can actually start kind of poking around in that build my pre-registration schedule from the applicant tab. So, having a look at some courses, thinking through some things before your registration date actually comes. So you can kind of pre-plan your schedule a bit as well. And then getting registered. So when that registration does open, ideally, you want to kind of register near the beginning so that you kind of get your first choice in terms of courses and electives and things like that. Students do kind of register all spring, summer as well. So it's not that if you miss that first day that you can't register. Just ideally, you don't want to leave it too long because things will start to fill up. I also point out that it is easy to change things. So I know sometimes students don't want to try on their own. They'll wait for a Fastpass session, but they might not get into Fastpass session until week 2 or something. So it is okay to try because you can drop and add courses. So if you do try registration, let's say before our other course registration webinars, if you need to correct something, It's a pretty easy process, especially over the spring, summer, before courses are even starting, to drop one course and add another one. So just because you pick all your courses, let's say July 10th, doesn't mean they're set in stone. We can, adjust things if you pick something that you don't want to try anymore, or if you missed a requirement, we need to fix something. It is very fixable. So don't be afraid to kind of play around and try, and we can definitely help you with that process. I think the next slide is finally the Fastpass one I was thinking of. Perfect. So Fastpass, you probably heard me say that about 6 or 7 times tonight. So you actually, any students that were admitted for fall 2021 should have gotten an email today. So emails did go out to personal emails as well as Lakehead email accounts at some point today about Fastpass, because registration did go live today. So Fastpass is basically like a pre-orientation program to get you acquainted with the program requirements. So it's going to be, again, kind of a more in-depth step-by-step overview of the academic calendar. So we kind of did a high-level overview tonight just to get you thinking about it, but this will go into more depth in terms of actually finding and reviewing your specific program requirements, a more thorough run through the academic calendar. So again, looking at important dates and how to find those different course types and how to find lots of different information within the academic calendar. So kind of a more in-depth overview of that. Actually a demonstration. So when we do those sessions, there's a live demonstration of how to add a class, clicking through and looking at all the options. So we just kind of shared some screenshots tonight, but that will actually have a live kind of demonstration of registering for classes. And then a lot of them this year, it's a real focus on academics. So we're trying to have faculty involvement with those too. So you'll notice, and I think somebody was able to put it in the chat there, and the link should also be in that email you would have received today. But when you register for your sessions, they're having a lot of faculty specific ones or department specific ones. So there might be a social work session or an engineering or computer science specific session. And we're hoping to have representatives from the faculty at those sessions to help answer kind of more specific questions unique to your program. And then there'll also be student central staff. So that I really encourage, even though you came tonight, this is very, very high level, because I know we have students from all different programs and things here tonight, and transfer students and high school students, and I'm sure there's some graduate students even joining us tonight. So this was really high level, but if you go to your Fastpass session, if you can't make your specific one for your program, they do have general ones. So it's okay if you don't go to that specific one, you're still going to get the information from the general sessions. So register early. It just opened today. Pick a time that works for you, and I would definitely encourage attending those Fastpass registration webinars, because they're just going to go through more detail of what we kind of touched on tonight to further solidify the process and get you started there. All right, so I think we'll probably look at some questions here. Let's see.
Aaron,
I guess the ones in there. What's that?
I'm just wondering, maybe Aaron can call out some of the questions he's been marking behind the scenes. It might make it easier, so you don't have to try and scroll through or browse through all the questions that are there.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great, actually.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks to everybody for your patience just as we kind of work through the questions here this evening. I know there were lots of good ones and some really specific ones, obviously, around program and course registration. So just bear with us here, and then we'll answer the rest of the questions if your question hasn't been answered yet. So we'll maybe start with a softball for you, Jess. How do you change programs? So what if a student has accepted their offer, they decided they maybe want to change majors, or even during the academic year, how would a student change programs if possible?
Yeah, so it kind of depends at what point you're changing. So if it's before we register for courses, like if a student or an applicant wants to change programs now at this point, it's actually easiest to change through UAC typically. So as long as it's not like a program that had limited enrollment or one of our kind of competitive programs that had earlier acceptance deadlines, generally adding the new program choice through UAC is what we'd recommend. If it's a specific student that's wondering about changing to a completely different program, they're welcome to kind of send us an email. We can walk them through that. But generally at this point, before you've registered, we'd ask that you put in a new program choice through UAC. And there's ways to avoid having to pay for that. Like if you haven't used your 3 choices through the University Application Center, you can put in a third one if you still have open space. Otherwise, you have to withdraw a choice and add a new one. So usually if students are looking at changing majors or something at this point, we'd ask them to put in a new choice through UAC. If they want to change, so they've become a student and they've registered and now, we're into the fall or the winter, and you kind of decide, it happens all the time. So don't, don't be afraid that happens to you. You realize you took an elective and you know what, your passion is totally something else. I changed after my first year. I added concurrent education. So I didn't actually change my major, but I decided, you know what, I'd like to do the education portion and make that easier on myself. So I switched into concurrent education with my international studies major. So it happens a lot. So in that case, most programs you can change. We have a program change request feature in my info. So students pay a program change fee and they request for a new program, and then they get assessed for that new program. We have to make sure that they meet the admission requirements, so like the prerequisite requirements. If they're doing a vast change, like going from let's say an English major to a very, applied life sciences, we'd be looking to see if they had those, high school prerequisite requirements. And then some programs also require faculty permission. So most programs, if you're kind of in course and study, you do the program change online through my info. There's a few programs like nursing and music and things like that students actually have to reapply to some of those programs if they're looking to change into some of those. I know that seemed like a convoluted answer to a simple question. It's really not a hard process. There's just a couple of ways of doing it.
I also want to mention, I also changed programs partway through my university career at Lakehead. So it's completely normal to think, I want to do this one program and then, realize an elective you really loved and realize I want to do this now. So totally normal.
I'd say like weekly, I probably have conversations about students wanting to change. So don't feel bad if that happens to you. It's totally normal. It's definitely something that that's what university's for, right? Discovering your passion and what you like, and your career plans change. And sometimes you have that really amazing professor that you realize, you know what, I want to go into this field or something like that. So definitely we help you through that process if you do want to change.
Exactly. Jess will give you a hand, all of you. Does a great job advising. The next question, Jess, is around kind of textbooks. So when do students know when to buy textbooks? When do they get the list for textbooks? How does that process kind of work?
Yeah, so I don't know if you noticed, but on that one slide where we had kind of the 5 different English courses, when we were looking at the courses, there is a textbook link. So when the timetable goes up, if textbook information is available, there's a direct link. So sometimes it depends on when the professor gets that information into the bookstore. So if there's a link there available on the timetable, then it should take you right to that when it opens. So kind of looking, July probably for that information. Sometimes it's updated later on, so you might not see it. So you can either click on that direct link when you're searching for courses and see if there's anything set up for that course. So there's a textbook link under the actual course in the timetable. If you don't see anything there, you can also look at the bookstore's website and you can search by course as well to see if the professor's assigned a textbook. Some of them don't do it till a little bit later on. One thing with textbooks I will say is it's often good to wait maybe closer to the time to buy your textbook, because sometimes professors will change. So I remember buying a course for my textbook for my course a couple of weeks before, and then I went into class the first day and got my syllabus and it had actually changed. So if you do buy them early, just don't write in them. Make sure you can kind of look at that return policy in case you have to exchange them. But yeah, it kind of depends on the course, but it should become available shortly after the timetable goes out. Most professors will make that information available, but kind of keep checking throughout the summer if you don't see it right away.
Awesome, thanks, Jess. Next one's a popular one around OSAP. Do you know when OSAP, the applications are opening for the upcoming year?
Yeah, so it actually opened, I think it was last week. So the 2021-2022 full-time application is open right now. I don't think the part-time one opened yet, but the full-time one is open just in the last week or so.
Perfect. And I've had a couple of questions around the pre-registration course builder. Is that open to all students? When is it available to students? How do they access it? If you can just remind students how that process works.
Yeah, so right now the fall winter timetable is not on there, so it's not super useful at the moment because you can just probably view spring summer courses that have already started or passed. But there is a link. So there's a link in the student tab and the applicant tab. So when you log into your MyInfo portal, right now most students will probably just have the applicant tab. So there is a link in the applicant tab. There's kind of different boxes, and I think it's towards like the second round of boxes. but you'll see build my pre-registration link in that applicant tab if you scroll down a bit further. So in that case, when the timetable does come open, so it should be open kind of end of June, and then we're looking at early July for registration. So probably, hopefully you'll have a week or so with that timetable. So even in that applicant tab, before you get switched over to student status, which typically doesn't happen until the day before your registration opens, in that applicant tab, you can still look at that build my pre-registration and kind of play around with the timetable once it's posted, and have a look at courses. And then once you get that student tab, which happens when you're made eligible, so we say made ELI, so eligible to register, another one of those acronyms. So when you're made eligible to register, typically the day before, then you'll get that student tab and you'll see that same build my pre-registration link that we showed you on the screenshot there. And then that's where you're going to go. And you should at that point have the proceed to course registration button, so that after you plan and build, you can actually then go register on the next page.
Awesome, thanks, Jess. And I'll post another link in the chat in a sec, just with some info on the pre-registration builder and the video tutorials for course registration that you mentioned, Jess. I think I posted it a little bit earlier in the chat as well, but there's some really good resources on the Student Central website for those of you that are looking for a little bit more.
Yeah, right on our main page is even a good spot. So right when you go to the Student Central main page, when you scroll down, there's kind of quick links at the bottom left, I guess it is. So there's like a video on how to navigate the academic calendar, and a video on the actual timetable navigation, and how to, step by step, how to register. So they're pretty useful. I love those little videos. So definitely check them out and kind of prepare yourself for when it does open, and so you have that easy navigation and trouble-free status there.
This one's the next one's a little bit tricky to answer, and you kind of touched on it earlier, but it's just about how competitive kind of course registration is for, I know it kind of varies program to program and course to course, but maybe talk a little bit about the difference between like a first year intro course, intro to psych or something, compared to like a fourth year compressed nursing course, right? They're going to be a little bit different. So maybe just touch on that.
Yeah, for sure. So we do have lots of first year courses have higher capacity. So if they're intro courses, and like intro to history or intro to sociology or psychology or whatever, we realize that students from multiple different programs are going to be taking those courses. So we tend to have different sections opened. So sometimes you might not maybe get your first preference of section in terms of times. You might have to take another section of it, maybe at a different time that you didn't necessarily want, but usually you can still kind of get into that course if there's multiple sections. So first year courses tend to have higher capacities. Sometimes for like more specific courses, like third, fourth special topics courses, they'll have a smaller course capacity. So maybe it's only going to be 30 or 40 students, in which case, obviously, it's a little more competitive to get into those courses. Looking at first year, though, to like some courses, to kind of manage that competitiveness, they'll be restricted to certain programs. So like take nursing, for instance, those courses will be restricted to nursing students. So the department knows how many students have been admitted. So they try to monitor the caps and how many students are registered to make sure that the students who need those courses are getting into them. So where you tend to see a little more competitiveness, I would say, is probably around electives, just because they can be open to multiple students, multiple programs. So applying or registering early might guarantee that you get the electives that your first choice electives versus your second choice. There's all kinds of courses, obviously, and that timetable has courses depending on the timetable that you're looking at. So there's Thunder Bay, Barrie, as well as Aurelia. So there's all kinds of different electives. So it may be that you maybe have to take a different one or a different English course or something like that. But the first year, there tends to be either multiple sections or a higher capacity, or just a lot of different options, because we know students are all kind of, most first year programs have a lot of electives built into them. But yeah, generally students are still registering throughout spring, summer, so they're still getting their courses they need, just maybe not the first choice in some of the things. So I wouldn't delay, but some people are they really want to be on there. So when they open, as soon as it opens, they log in, they get their courses. And that's a good idea too, because like I said, it's changeable, right? So if you're kind of worried about that and you've been looking at the timetable and you do have some really specific, courses that you want, then feel free to go ahead and register as soon as it opens. And then if something, you go to that Fastpass session and realize actually, I should be taking a type C course and I picked a type B, it's easy to change that. So no worries there. Does that kind of answer the question?
I think so. I hope so. That was perfect, Jess. Appreciate it. Okay, so there's lots of kind of detailed program specific questions. So just with some of you that have kind of posted some questions in the Q&A, I'm going to get you some contact information for our Student Central office. We would love to help everybody tonight with some of those specific FCE related questions, but just in the interest of time and with Jess being only one person here, we're going to try and answer as many questions as we can. But with Fastpass coming up in the next couple months, that'll be a really good resource for some of you that have asked some of those specific questions that we unfortunately can't get to tonight, but we do have office hours for Student Central as well. So Jess, maybe can you let students know what the office hours for Student Central, just so they can maybe get in touch with some of the advisors after this evening?
Yeah, so right now we're primarily phone and email right now. So you can always email studentcentral@lakeheadu.ca. If you do want kind of a more immediate answer, we have a phone queue system. So the hours for that, every day but Tuesday, it's 8:30 to 4. Our phone queue is open. Tuesdays we open at 10. I know sometimes there can be a bit of a wait when it's kind of peak time. So we do have a new callback feature, which is kind of handy for students. So I think it kind of comes in at the 10 or 15-minute mark. So if you have been waiting and you don't want to kind of wait anymore, it'll come on. Sometimes I've been told the music's really loud, so you have to really listen because suddenly the callback feature comes on. But it does request if you want to call back so you don't have to kind of hang on hold. And then when your turn the queue comes up, then it automatically rings you back. So the callback feature has been really handy for students this year if you don't want to kind of have to wait if it's peak time. Definitely kind of earlier mornings is a good time to call. It tends to be a little quieter then. But yeah, that's mainly how we're helping students right now, is through that phone queue as well as through email. So yeah, I don't know if we'll be doing any Zoom sessions during the year. We typically have kind of general Q&A sessions, Zoom sessions once a day that we have student staff that help us run as well. So we're not offering those at the moment, just because we have some new student staff and we're doing training and things. But during the year, that's typically another way to connect with us. And depending what fall looks like, whether there's in-person office hours or how that's going to look hasn't been determined yet, but we'll definitely keep people posted.
Awesome, thanks, Jess. Just a couple more here. Maybe just one around financial aid and scholarships and awards. When does application run for applying for scholarships, awards, and bursaries, Jess? If you can maybe just lightly touch on how that works for students.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a great thing to bring up, because some of them, we have some entrance bursaries. So bursaries are based on financial need. So there's entrance bursaries as well as like a mature and transfer student bursary. So if you are a mature student or a transfer student, there's also an entrance bursary specific to mature and transfer students. So a lot of those things are actually open right now, and I believe most of them close at the end of June. So if you haven't applied for those kind of entrance bursaries, definitely encourage you to do so this month. Other than our entrance ones, the next kind of round is August 15th to October 15th. So that's kind of a yearly date range to keep in mind. So that 2-month period, August 15th to October 15th, we have a My Awards portal. So when you do get that student tab, I encourage you to poke around. There's lots of cool stuff in there. One of which is My Awards. So that's the portal where we house all the applications for our different scholarships, awards, and bursaries. So if you're a new student for fall 2021, you'll be active in that My Awards portal on August 15th. So probably if you go in to check it, when you get that student status at the end of June, you probably won't see anything there. So on August 15th, students are made active, and then there's a profile form. So you fill in kind of a 10 to 15 minute profile form, and then it actually searches the awards database for you. So it'll search through all the different options that we have based on what you put in that profile form and what we pulled, your data from your application. And then it's going to list different things that you might be eligible to apply for. So you might see a big list, of all different scholarships, awards, and bursaries, and then you can apply for as many or as few as you want during that 2-month kind of period. So I usually encourage students, it gets busy in September, and sometimes you forget to do that. So look at the end of August before kind of things become a little busier and you forget. So that's kind of anything that's awarded in that period. That's August 15th to October 15th period. Students would typically know by December, and that would help with their winter fees. Whereas if you're applying for one of our entrance bursaries, then typically that's helping with your fall fees, and students would be notified over the summer. So keeping August 15th to October 15th key dates. And then the flip side, in the spring, always looking in that same portal, because we do have things like returning student bursaries when you're going from like year 1 to year 2 that are open from March to June. So kind of looking at that 2 different times of the year. But definitely if you're looking at entrance bursary, you'll want to apply before the end of June.
Perfect. Thanks, Jess. So just kind of looking at timing here, I know we could probably do this for another couple hours and go through a lot more content and questions, but we are limited with time here this evening. So I think we'll maybe hold it there for the Q&A and just kind of wrap things up here. But I will say for those of you that we weren't able to get to answering your questions, I did include an email in the chat. So feel free to post your question or send us an email directly to our recruitment office at recruit@lakeheadu.ca. And myself or Aaron or one of our team members will try and assist you via email. And if not, if we need to get you in touch with one of our Student Central advisors, then we're happy to do that as well. And like Jess said, you can always get in touch with them through phone during office hours or email as well if you have more information. We do have lots of good links in the chat as well. And I know Jess covered some of the questions that I have here, which were answered earlier around kind of program delivery. So the main thing to kind of take away is just to keep an eye on your Lakehead email accounts in the next month or so, because you guys will be getting a lot of information from Student Central and other departments here at Lakehead to assist you with course registration and kind of next steps. So if you're wondering how program delivery is going to be for the fall, or course registration, or Fastpass, definitely take a peek at your Lakehead email, because a lot of those email comms have gone out, or they will be going out in the next couple weeks. So just hang tight. I know everybody's excited and ready to go, but we're happy to help, and we're here to help if you do have more questions after this evening. So I'll turn it over to maybe Aaron to kind of wrap things up, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron and Jesse, for all of the Q&As. I know I saw the screen popping down every now and then, and I saw there was a ton in there. So really appreciate you both going through those and answering the questions. But so to continue on with our webinar and our PowerPoint, it has been so great that we've had the opportunity to share with you how much we love Lakehead University. But now it's actually your turn to see it for yourself. One of the best ways for you to experience Lakehead is to come visit us for a campus tour. However, with the current situation, we're unable to offer in-person tour experiences, but we are working hard at creating a safe in-person tour experience a little later this summer. You watch our website for details and updates. We'll be sure to hopefully update when the pandemic we figure things out. Until then, be sure to visit us virtually by visiting our website and sign up for one of our live virtual campus tours running 3 times per week at each campus. As well, we do also have a ton of important dates coming up. So today is June 1st, and you'll see there are 3 very important dates today. So you have already accepted your offer. Be sure to also pay your deposit for your offer as well. So that is also due today. The deadline to apply for residence and pay for your deposit is also today. So be sure to keep that in mind as we almost finish the rest of June 1st today. But there are also other deadlines coming up throughout the summer and then into October as well, or into the fall. So your first residence payment deadline is also the same date as your first tuition payment deadline of August 15th. Course registration also opens, as it's been mentioned a few times, late June or early July. We also have a residence move-in date of September 2nd for anyone who is coming in to our Orillia campus or our Thunder Bay campus from out of town. First day of classes is September 7th, and then I know we're already kind of talking about study breaks here, but October 11th is your fall study break. I know you haven't even started yet, but it's always great to know when that break is coming up, especially if you needed to go home or anything like that as well. Have a little break. And then also your second tuition payment deadline is December 15th. And so this is just the beginning. While our time together today is coming to an end, we want to stay in touch with you and help you through your next steps. Please also stay in touch with us directly. We are here to help and would love to hear from you. Answer any questions you may have and keep you updated. So Erin has shared our recruitment email with you already. Student Central is also there to help, again, through registration and Fastpass. But I do want to thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon. I do want to thank Jesse and Aaron as well for joining us today and presenting on Fastpass and course registration and offering all of the information that students need. I know this is an anxious time for incoming students, and everyone wants to know when course registrations are opening and everything like that. So hopefully we've answered a lot of your questions along the way. So I don't know if there's any questions that we do want to take just as the last few minutes we have here. If anything has come in, I can't see the chat, or the Q&A, but Erin, I don't know if there's any last minute questions that we can take before we kind of head off for the day.
Yeah, I think we're okay for now. Like I said, I do see a lot of kind of specific questions in the Q&A, so we'll maybe do a follow-up with all of you. Like I said, if you want to email us at recruit@lakeheadu.ca, it'll just allow Erin and myself and the recruitment team to get back to you with some more detailed answers around your questions. So we'll maybe leave it there, and again, just thanks for joining us today.
Great. Have a great rest of your evening,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us.